Steve Jobs said it would be bigger than the personal computer. John Doerr, the venture capitalist who backed Google and Amazon, called it potentially the largest company ever built. A sitting United States president rode one and fell off. The product it was describing, a scooter that went 10 miles per hour. The Segway was not just a product failure. It was a failure of an almost incomprehensible scale of expectation. And the gap between what was promised and what was delivered remains, to this day, one of the most instructive disasters in the history of American business. Dean Kamen was not a fraud. That is important to establish early. He was a genuine inventor, the kind who holds over 440 patents, who invented a portable insulin pump as a teenager, who built a private island off the coast of Connecticut and commuted to work by helicopter. By any measure, an extraordinary mind. His company, DEKA Research, had a legitimate track record. His iBot wheelchair, a device that could climb stairs and balance on two wheels using gyroscopic technology, was a genuine engineering marvel. The FDA approved it. The Department of Veterans Affairs used it. It changed lives. Kamen had earned his confidence. And somewhere in the late 1990s, Dean Kamen took the balancing technology from that wheelchair and asked himself, what if you built a personal transportation device around this? What if you could create something that would replace the car in cities? What if this was the future of how human beings move through the world? The project was given a code name, Ginger. Internally, it was also referred to as IT, and the secrecy around it was, in retrospect, a warning sign. When your product's primary marketing strategy before launch is mystique, you are doing something very specific. You are letting other people's imaginations build the hype for you. Imaginations, it turns out, are more creative than reality. In 2001, a book proposal was leaked. The author was writing about Kamen, and the proposal described Ginger in terms that were charitable, grandiose. It referenced Steve Jobs saying the device would be as big as the PC. It referenced John Doerr comparing it to the internet. The business press lost its mind. Speculation ran wild. Was it a hovercraft, a teleportation device, a new kind of fuel cell? The actual answer, a two-wheeled, self-balancing electric scooter with a top speed of 12 miles per hour and a price tag of around $5,000, was revealed in December 2001 on Good Morning America. The internet's collective reaction was something between confusion and disappointment. To be clear about the engineering, it was genuinely impressive. The Segway used gyroscopic sensors and accelerometers to detect shifts in the rider's center of gravity and adjust motor output accordingly up to 100 times per second. You leaned forward, it moved forward. You stood straight, it stopped. No throttle, no brake pedal. It worked. But here is where the story turns, because a product working is not the same as a product being necessary. And the Segway had a problem that no amount of engineering could solve. Nobody had asked for it. Kamen had projected sales of 10,000 units per week within the first year. His internal forecasts reportedly envisioned annual revenues of $1 billion within a year. By some accounts, he believed the Segway would fundamentally restructure how cities were designed. New cities, he suggested, would be built around it. Existing cities would be retrofitted. The car, essentially, would become obsolete. John Doerr's venture firm, Kleiner Perkins, invested. In total, the company raised an estimated $90 million in funding before selling a single unit. That money was not raised for a scooter startup. That money was raised for a civilization-changing infrastructure company. The pitch and the product were living in entirely different universes. And then the Segway launched into the real world, which had sidewalks with cracks in them, and staircases and buses, and weather and parking problems, and, critically, laws. Most American cities either banned or severely restricted Segway use on sidewalks and roads simultaneously, meaning the device existed in a legal no-man's land between pedestrian and vehicle. The price point was $5,000 at launch. For context, you could buy a used car for $5,000. A car that went faster than 12 miles per hour, carried more than one person, protected you from rain, and was legal to operate on any road in America. The Segway's target customer, the urban commuter, looked at the math and kept walking. In its first year, Segway sold approximately 6,000 units, total, against a projection of 10,000 per week. That is not a miss. That is a category of miss that requires its own vocabulary. The company pivoted to police departments, to airport security, to mall cops and warehouse workers and tour groups in tourist cities, which, and credit where it is due, actually worked as a niche. But it was not the future of human civilization. It was a novelty vehicle for people who needed to cover moderate distances while looking vaguely futuristic. There were other problems. In 2003, a software glitch caused Segways to unexpectedly reverse direction when the battery ran low, throwing riders forward. The company recalled all units sold to that point, approximately 6,000. A safety recall on a product you've sold 6,000 units of, against a projection of 10,000 per week, is the kind of sentence you don't put on your investor update. In 2006, President George W. Bush stepped onto a Segway at the family estate in Kennebunkport, Maine. He promptly fell off. He had not turned it on. The photograph ran in newspapers worldwide. It was, for the Segway, the definitive image. A powerful man failing to operate a vehicle specifically designed to be impossible to fall off. By 2009, Segway Inc. was sold. The buyer was Jimmy Heselden, a British entrepreneur and philanthropist who had made his fortune in military perimeter barriers. He purchased the company for a reported figure in the low tens of millions of dollars, a fraction of what had been invested. He believed in the product. He genuinely did. In September 2010, 11 months after acquiring the company, Jimmy Heselden died when he fell off a Segway into a river at his estate in West Yorkshire. The official ruling was accidental death. He had apparently been trying to maneuver out of the way of a member of his staff. He was 62 years old. History does not always deliver its ironies gently. The company continued under new ownership. It continued selling to niche markets. It never came close to the projections. In 2020, amid the economic disruption of the pandemic and the rise of genuinely competitive electric mobility options, e-bikes, electric scooters, hoverboards, the manufacturer announced it would cease production of the original Segway PT permanently. Total units sold across the entire 20-year lifespan of the product, an estimated 140,000. For reference, Toyota sells more Camrys than that in about 6 weeks. The company that was supposed to make the car obsolete sold fewer lifetime units than a moderately popular sedan sells in a single quarter. So what actually went wrong? Because the technology worked. The engineering was real. The people involved were not stupid. The money was real. The answer is something more fundamental and more common than any of those factors. The Segway solved a problem that did not exist at the scale required to justify its own ambition. Cities were not designed around the Segway because cities do not redesign themselves around products. Products redesign themselves around cities or they fail. Walking is free, requires no charging infrastructure, fits on any sidewalk and works in the rain. The Segway cost $5,000 and didn't. And perhaps most critically, the hype destroyed the product before it launched. When the expectation is a civilization-altering invention and the delivery is a scooter, no scooter on Earth, no matter how well engineered, survives that gap. Kamen didn't just overpromise. He let the world overpromise on his behalf and then handed them something reasonable. The lesson is not that bold vision is dangerous. Bold vision built every company worth talking about. The lesson is that vision without a clear, honest answer to the question, who specifically needs this, and why will they pay for it, is not vision. It is theater. Expensive, well-funded, occasionally presidential theater, but theater nonetheless. The Segway didn't fail because Dean Kamen wasn't brilliant. It failed because brilliance and market fit are entirely different things, and all the venture capital in the world cannot purchase the second one by investing in the first. If you found this story entertaining, wait until you hear what happened to the Ranos, a company that raised $9 billion on a product that also didn't work, except this time the consequences were significantly more serious than a presidential pratfall. Subscribe for more hidden empires.